Now, I mentioned that, unfortunately, Szymanowski's music isn't terribly well known. I've known the Violin Concerto and a couple of his works for a very long time, and I've never performed them, I've never heard them performed, and so I'm a little jealous that you all get a chance to hear this. But I think back to when I first encountered Szymanowski's music. When I was an undergraduate studying at Temple University in Philadelphia, I had a part-time job, and my part-time job was at Tower Records. In Philadelphia, there were two Tower Records stores across the street from one another. One, the photo you see here, was the Pop store. They had all of the rock and jazz and world music and things like that over there. And across the street was a classical annex, and the classical annex was nothing but classical music. At any given time we had about 60,000 different CDs in stock, and so for a young person who's studying music and just kind of working my way through music history classes, music literature, music theory, this was a wonderful job to have, because we would talk about things in class one day, and then I could go to work and I could buy them later that day. The best part, well, there were a lot of good parts about working at Tower Records. I had some really marvelous, very, very knowledgeable colleagues who turned me on to a bunch of things. One of my co-workers, a man by the name of Ralph, was a church organist and got me interested in a lot of organ repertoire that I might not have otherwise encountered. But one of the best things, as you might imagine, of working at Tower Records was the employee discount. I didn't make a lot of money there. I think it was $5.25 an hour, but I got 40% off CDs, and so basically my paychecks just turned around into CDs. And I remember browsing the store one night and I came across the name Karol Szymanowski. I thought, here's somebody I've never heard of. These CDs are $9.99 each. With my 40% off, I'm walking out under $10 for half of a handful of pieces that Szymanowski wrote. And so places like Tower Records, I think, are marvelous, and I'm very, very sad that not only record stores but a lot of the good bookstores too are starting to vanish, because they provide a very unique site in which we can encounter music in different ways. I firmly believe that walking around and browsing a Tower Records or a Barnes & Noble, or even frankly a Macy's, is a very fundamentally different experience than shopping online and having an algorithm recommend something to you. So in terms of encountering music, this is one way that I want you to think about how we encounter music. Brick and mortar stores versus online stores that maybe recommend things to you, or you have a hard time finding what you want, or frankly you're overwhelmed with the possibilities that come back when you search on YouTube for a particular video. I'm going to talk about George Walker a little bit, and you may recall we talked about Walker a little bit, I think maybe earlier this year. We talked a little bit about him in the context of our current issues in classical music and composer diversity. He just recently passed away. He passed away in August of 2018, and was the first black composer to win the Pulitzer Prize for Music in 1996 for his piece Lilacs. Well, he began his musical training at Oberlin College and Conservatory, and he started life as a concert pianist. He toured all around the country, he toured all around Europe as a concert pianist. But he found very quickly that it was difficult for him, particularly as a black man in America at the time, to have a career as a concert pianist. And so he turned his attention to studying composition. He went to the Eastman School of Music, a very, very fine music school in Rochester, New York, and the Curtis Institute of Music, where he studied with Rosario Scalero, who happened to be Samuel Barber's teacher. So if you're a fan of Samuel Barber, I do think that Walker's music sounds a little bit similar to his. For a long time, Walker taught composition at Rutgers University, and as I mentioned, he lived right up until last year in August, when passed away at the age of 95. So his Sinfonia Number 5, subtitled Visions, and it was composed in response to the church bombings in Charleston, South Carolina, which took place a couple of years ago. These very much affected Walker, and he saw fit to write a musical response to it. Now, the thing was, he completed the piece, and he was quite old at the time, and he wasn't sure that he would be able to hear what it sounds like. I don't know this for certain, but I have a suspicion that this piece had been programmed by the Seattle Symphony, and may have been considered, I think it still is considered the premier performance of this, but Walker really wanted to hear what this sounded like. He was afraid he wouldn't be able to hear the premiere, and unfortunately his premonition kind of came true. But he hired an orchestra to record the work so that he could hear what it sounded like. And I got to thinking a little bit about this too, in terms of encountering music. In a way, you all are fortunate enough that you get to hear what most people would consider to be the world premiere of this work. What's interesting, though, is that it already exists in the form of a recording. And in fact, I have a little preview that I'll share with you in just a couple of minutes that's up on YouTube. And you can, I was going to say you could go to Tower Records and buy this recording, but you can't go to Tower Records because they don't exist anymore. But point being, this piece exists already as a recording, and even though it's been out in the world for probably just short of a year, you all are going to get to hear what's considered the premiere performance of it. So what I'd like to do is take a minute and give you an opportunity to hear a little bit of preview of Walker's Sinfonia Number 5.